So, like I said, the first four, this training, the overall training is for 8 weeks. And the first 4 weeks, this is what we'll be handling. We've done week 1. We reversed that module 4 to become 1 so that everybody will be on the same page, okay? It's more like to bring everybody up to speed. So now we're going back to module 1, which is energy auditing. Next week, we'll discuss energy efficiency. So I think after next week, the whole thing will start making sense. But for today, we'll be introducing you to the concept of energy auditing. Now, let me say this. There are a lot of, there's work audit, there is financial audit, there is a lot of audits. So for today, we'll be looking at it from, there's no two difference in them, all in that there are different ways you arrive at your end goal, and the outputs are different, okay? And the methodologies are also different. Like I said, no one knows it all. I cannot claim ownership of knowing everything about auditing, but you permit me today in the next 1 hour to share my own perspective. Then I'll also see your perspective, and some of that perspective, then we'll see what we can make out of it. Okay, so energy auditing. Like I said, the whole idea is for us to make you, become an auditor or become a certified energy auditor if you want to write the exam and get the global certification. So the first thing is energy audits. The purpose of audit is to identify. Now, so there are 3 key things you need to understand when we talk about energy auditing. Now, audits. Remember, we are localizing it to energy auditing. Number 1 thing we want you to understand about auditor, as an auditor, is how to identify opportunities, energy conservation, how to identify where they are, what we call the key performance indicators, or the areas where there is potential savings. So the first thing is to identify. How do you identify them? Okay.
Sorry and then to interrupt. Can you put the slide on full screen, just for future?
Sorry, the slide. Okay, the slide is in the material, the Google link I shared.
No, I'm saying the one you are currently projecting now. Is it possible to just put it on full screen mode?
It's on screen, sir. Are you not seeing my screen?
Make it full screen. Can you make it full screen?
Okay, full screen. This is a new Adobe.
Make it bigger.
Just go to view. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, I've done that.
Thank you so
much.
Okay,
so what we're saying is energy auditing in a nutshell is you being able to identify energy conservation, determine where the opportunities are, and then you cost them. So the first is you identify them, you quantify them, and you cost them. So these are the three words. Identify, where is it? You cost, you quantify. So the quantification is where the problem is. The identification might not be a problem. If I come to your house, I know that your refrigeration, your AC and your refrigeration unit are the major energy users. So I'm not going to be looking at the LED bulbs. I'll be looking at some television, 80-watt television, 100-watt television, LED televisions. No, I'll go straight to your AC. I'll go straight to your heating systems. I'll go straight to your refrigeration system. As a matter of fact, these 3 components consume about 70%. So that's where the money is. That's where the saving is. Then the next thing is, how do I quantify them? And that is what Chima tried to do last week and what he will do next week. Okay, he did the basics last week. So next week he's going to introduce us to industrial energy efficiency, both commercial and industrial, right? So you begin to see how to, look at the energy efficiency and then how to upscale or downscale them and then make money out of it. Then the last one is how to cost them, which is what I'll come back to do on the 4th week, right? And then we'll be done with module 1. Then we'll move to the module 2, which is now the renewable energy. So that's for 8 weeks. So that's what audit is. Audit is for you to identify, okay? After identifying them, so for you to identify, you need to be trained. You need to know different perspective, different standards, EU standard, other country energy standards. So that if peradventure you're not doing auditing in Nigeria, you begin to understand how do they do it there. But then there's always this global framework for everything. So you now adapt whatever they have and then add it to what you already have from your own side. Then the second one is how to quantify them. In quantifying them, we're talking about numbers. Business people want numbers. Banking want numbers. Your client is not interested in your English. He's interested in, okay, change this AC to inverter type and your energy cost will come down by 20%. That's his interest. So how you quantify it and how you present it to him matters a lot. Then at the end of the day, of course, you cost it. Okay. So now there are different standards. There's the ISO standard, there's European norm, and what have you, and more are coming up. And some of this auditing could be in buildings, it could be in industrial processes, it could be in transport, and it could be also in other areas. And for you to cascade them, then you need to know the general requirements, both for building, both for industry, both for transport, and then you look at the qualification of the energy auditor. So some of these things that you can read, I'm not going to read them. I will share the slides. So now, like I said, there are different processes, energy auditing processes, but if you look at them, they are just similar and they are almost the same. So on your left, you have the, based on European norm, 16247. Then on the right, you have the energy audit process based on ISO 50002. So, but all of them are just pointing to one thing. And that thing is that the starting point of an auditor is to have the contacts. So based on EN standard, he call it preliminary contact. You have to have a contact with the MD. You need to share your ideas. You need to share your perspective and tell him, look, I notice you are consuming a lot of energy bill is up. I have idea of how to make it down. Or probably they are the one who approached you and explain their challenges to you. Okay. So the ISO call it energy audit planning. So it's the same thing. Then the next thing is you have a what we call a startup meeting. You have a startup meeting. This startup meeting is for you to lay the groundwork for the real work. The startup meeting is where you now tell them about your qualification, also get to know their own challenges. So the startup meeting is usually a meeting between you, the client, and the downstream staff, or the production staff, or the day-to-day running staff. So this is the meeting where you come together and you, as the auditor, you persuade and convince them on the need to do auditing. Now, those of us that have been involved in auditing, I have been in other areas too. Auditing can be challenging. Auditing can be a problem. A few months ago, I told one of my boss in one of the engineering ministry in Abuja, there's a need for them to do auditing. FCDA, let me put it there. I went to him, I said, there's a need for you guys to audit your projects. Now that you have a new minister, you need to know where to focus. You need to know where the low-hanging fruits are. You need to know what is happening with the contractors. Some of them are not saying the truth. Some of them are inflating their reverse bill. Some of them are the feedback they are getting. Some of them are compromising, whatever I said, right, to convince him. He looked at me and he told me, he said, Uche, there's nothing to audit here. He said, all of us that are on top management staff now, we are the ones who supervise this project. So auditing this thing is like auditing ourselves, and it will lead to problems. And that is where the whole idea died. So it is possible that as an auditor, you might get some kind of pushback. You have wonderful ideas, you are knowledgeable, you have the skills, but the internal and external politics, or what we call the externalities, will not allow you to do any auditing because it's going to review a lot of things. Let's say you're going to audit the diesel consumption, and probably one of the managers is the one in charge of diesel, and you know he has been doing some funny things there. So you don't expect that person to agree to auditing. I mean, it's going to be a problem. In fact, the gate man, who when they bring diesels and they empty maybe 2,000 gallons, and he claims it's 2,500 gallons. Once he hears that auditing is coming up, he's already sitting on the edge. And he only expressed this by being in opposition. So these startup meetings is a very important meeting where you as the auditor, you need to find a way and convince everybody that this auditing is a win-win. It's a win-win for everybody, and it's going to make everybody good. In fact, during this startup meeting, it's a time to also management to make promises, right? If we audit our energy and we save some energy, probably we'll give it back to the staff. So after the meeting, then we move to the data collection. So it's after the meeting that you'll be assigned who will help you to monitor data, to collect data. The man who is giving the energy bills will be given an express instruction to release the data history to you, to release the energy bills to you, and I mean everybody should come on board, right? Then after then, you move to data collection. So data collection could be a day thing, depending on the grade of audit. It could be a week thing, depending on the scope of the audit. And it could also be a continuous thing, depending on the management decision. So data collection could involve putting data loggers, could be involve doing measurements. It could involve installing one or two equipments on site, depending whether it's industrial or it's residential. And then, generally collecting the whole data. So that is the next step for the auditing process. Then the data collection can also be two ways. It could also involve field work. Okay, the two can be used interchangeably somehow, but to make it more broader, you can say field work, because this field work involves going back and forth, installing measurement instruments, getting back feedback, doing some measure of control, optimizing systems, just to make sure that at the end of the day, you do a lot of field work. Then after the field work, you go to analysis, more like DEX work. But then in some cases, this field work, this analysis might lead you back to data collection again. So you do some data collections, you move to field work. Then if you're not satisfied or doing analysis, you find out that you need to capture more data or you need to take more readings, then you go back to data collections, right? Or if what you got is not making sense, then you go back to base. Then after the analysis, then we'll move to reporting. Reporting is also very, very critical. You need to report things in such a way that you'll be paid, your client will be happy, and you can make progress. So your template for reporting, the manner of reporting, and the language of reporting are very, very important. Then after that, to submit your report, it will be good for you to also have a closing meeting. So start with a meeting, you are supposed to close with a meeting. So the closing meeting will now be when you come back to management and then give them a pep talk. Okay. Then submit the final report to them and give them the output of the reports. So this is very important. So what we just said now is based on European norm, Euro code or whatever. And if you look at it from the ISO standard, just like a repetition, you find out that the first step is your energy auditing planning. Then you do your opening meeting. Then opening meeting could go in hand with data collection. Then from data collection, you move to measurement plan, which is more like field work. Okay. Then after the measurement plan, you now go to conducting the site visit. You must visit the site, whether it's a walkthrough audit, whether it's an energy grade audit. You just have to visit the site. And then after visiting the site, of course, you go back to analyze DEX work, okay, to analyze the output. Then you go back to measurement again if your analysis is not making sense, or if some things are missing, or if you're not getting what you are looking for. Then after that, you now do what we call energy audit reporting. So that's more like also reporting, okay? I also call it energy audit reporting. So that means it is something special. Then after that, you now hold the closing meeting. So looking at these two diagram, you'll find out that they are saying the same thing. Absolutely same thing. How an energy auditing is performed, whether it's an industry application or residential application. Okay, so I hope there's no problem. There's no question. Okay, Mohammed, you said you are having problem with hearing us. Please check your site, check your end, log out, log in again, maybe to help the problem. Any questions so far? No question. So let's proceed. Okay, so what are the goals? So the first of all, the goal of energy auditing is you must clearly, your goal as an energy auditor, you must clearly identify types and cost of energy. You must understand how energy is being used and possibly wasted. That is still on identification, right? We said three key things that we must always have in mind when it comes to energy auditing is identification, quantification, and costing. If you must forget everything, don't forget these three things. How do I identify? How do I quantify? How do I cost? Then, of course, all of them, you put it in a report. From your report, you now go for the closing meeting. So that is what it is. So in identifying, we said you must understand how energy is being used and wasted. Okay? You must also identify cost-effective way of using them. What are the cost-effective way? Most often, if you go to big industrial application, you find out that workers know how to waste energy. I can't remember how many times I tried to off the lights and open the windows and the curtain blind in my house. But somebody will always come back and tell me, why are you behaving like a poor man? You know? So for me, I see it as how to use energy better in the daytime, meaning I off lights and open the windows and open the window blinds so that I can have more illumination and save myself some energy. Even though with the advent of LED bulbs, you are saving virtually very, very small, right? Okay. Then all of us must have seen some week ago, one of our ministers misspoke, okay, when he tried to advise Nigerians to always off their refrigeration in the afternoon. Is it in the afternoon, on the night? In the night. Okay. He makes sense, but he didn't that was not the main issue. Okay. The minister he's not wrong in what he said, but the context is wrong. Okay. We are talking about a country of 200 million people using 5,000 megawatts. You should be focused on how to increase generation and of course distribution, and not to tell us how to conserve the one that we're not even seeing, right? By telling us when to off our refrigerator or not. But then there's sense in it, but not quite a big one. Okay. Then you need to know how to perform economic analysis. I love this part. When we come to that part, some of you are going to learn something new. When we start using interest table, how to interest rates, payback period, interest. I mean, a whole lot of business appraisal indicators. We're going to do that. Okay, so you must know how to perform economic analysis. If I have 20 units of 100-watt bulbs, and I decide to change them to LEDs, so which are 20 watts. So it means my energy saving is 100 minus 80. So 80 minus times 20 is giving me 1.6 kilowatts. So I'm saving 1.6 kilowatts per hour. Then 1.6 kilowatt per hour for 24 hours or for 16 hours. What is it? So all those kind of things, you must know how to do them as an auditor. Then finally, you must develop an action plan, responsibility, timeline, and budget for implementation. Not just about doing audits. You also have to, become business-minded in presenting a business case for it, or developing an energy plan for the organization. Okay, so now there are two broad types of auditors you might encounter. We have internal auditors and we have external auditors. Now, you might find yourself in any of the two, or you might find yourself being in between the two, but it's good for us to clearly show their distinction and then show their pros and their cons so that you understand. Now, internal auditor is like you, after all this course, after this training, you want to audit your organization or you want to audit your own house, okay? In that case, you are being an internal auditor because you are part of the organization, you're part of the system. So at that point, you're an internal auditor. External auditor involves people recruiting you after this training. Okay, you selling yourself as an auditor, presenting yourself as an auditor, and probably going for some 1 or 2 certification just to sell yourself more. And then you being engaged to carry out this audit. So the pros of being an internal person is that you're familiar with the company production processes, you're familiar with everybody. So what that means is that everybody will be at home with you, everybody knows you, everybody understands you. So they're probably not going to give you a lot of problem, headache. So it's not going to take you time to master where the money is, or let me say where the energy is, or where the energy can be saved. So easy for you because you're already an internal person. Then the second one is that you already know what data is available. So it's not a big deal for you. You know where the data are. You know how to get them. You know what you guys are consuming. So it's easy for you to gather them and start your work. Then number three is that one of the pros is that it's cost effective. It's cost effective because you are doing it maybe probably free, or you're being paid just for some external overhead. Okay, because you're already an employee of the company, or you're already part of the system, so you might not really make such a huge demand on the organization. But then it has some cons or some disadvantage. Number one is that there's this business as usual thinking. Okay, so everybody will just be, just take you for granted because they know you. Engineer Uche, what are you doing? This one you are looking at the back of the TV. What are you trying to do? Why are you asking me about energy bills? I mean, when are you now the boss? That kind of thing, that kind of talk will come in, and it can be challenging sometimes. People will not take you serious, So that's the disadvantage. Then the other one is that you might not ask some questions. There are some questions you might not be able to ask because asking those questions might entail stepping on people's toes. Imagine going to ask the security man about how many liters of diesel when you are working in the factory, for instance. I mean, you will be quick to remind you that you're not the admin and you're not his supervisor, that kind of thing. Even when you are being commissioned by the management, there's still going to be some pushback, right? So that's one of the disadvantages. You psychologically, there are some questions you won't ask your boss. I mean, it's not normal for you to ask your boss to start giving you some data, some details, especially when probably he has interest in them. All right. Yeah, it's always possible. Even when he doesn't have interest in them, he always feel you are overreaching. Okay. So the next one is that because of these things we have listed here, then one will naturally expect that the quality will be lower. You might not get a quality audit report because you'll be limited by a lot of factors. However, if you are to be an external person, external auditor, then it's most likely that we're going to have very high standard, high quality reports because the person is being paid well. The person is being recruited based on his qualification, based on his merits. So we expect the quality to be higher. Then being an external person, he doesn't know anybody, so there's no kind of clash of interest. So it's likely the person will ask a lot of questions. He will delve into areas that are kind of controversial in order to get his data and do his work. Then he will be able to ask questions based on outside perspective, and that is very crucial because when you ask questions based on outside perspective, you ask a broader question. Then the disadvantage is that it can be very expensive, of course. It can be very expensive. I don't know how much an auditor is paid based on Nigerian standard because it's an emerging field, it's an emerging area. So, but all I know is that auditors in places like Canada and US, they earn quite a lot. Now, another thing is that it might take quite some time for the person to understand the process because the person needs to embed himself into the system. So he needs to take some time, understand the production process, understand how often you off your refrigerator, how often you on it, how often you use the heater, how often you embark on production processes, and even the behavioral lifestyle of the employees is an issue. Some of them will leave their AC on, even when nobody's in the room. Some of them will leave their AC on and open the windows and a whole lot of things. So it can take quite a lot of time. Then you need the support of internal people as an external auditor. You need to, I don't know how to put it, but you can't succeed if they are against your work. So external auditor will have a lot of friendship, how would I put it? A lot of teamwork to build, team spirits. You need to build, a lot of collaboration. You need to convince people. You just have to find a way and make sure that everybody collaborates with you. The facility manager must be on board. He must be committed to the auditing process. The management staff must be reassured that some level of confidentiality must be taken, and a whole lot of things has to go in you getting support from the internal people. So that is it. So that are the advantage and disadvantages of being an internal auditor and being an external one. I hope there's no question why we go on. Okay. Mohammed, you can hear now. That's a good one. Okay, now we have 3 levels of audits. Please, it's good you understand these 3 levels of audits so that when you are called upon to do audits, you know what you are starting with. Now, we have level 1 audits. Okay, so level 1 audits is also called walkthrough audits. Walkthrough audits. Level 1 audit is also walkthrough audits. So this walkthrough audits is sorry, somebody say he's having an issue. So it's a walkthrough audit. Level 1 is a walkthrough audits. What it takes is for you to just walk through formalization. You do some desktop analysis. You generate energy intensity areas, equipment, and then you recommend low or no cost energy measure. Then you write reports. So there are 4 key things you just do in any walkthrough audit. And as the word implies, you walk through. Okay? It's something you can do in one day. It's something that's very limited in scale. It's something you can do for one day. It's something you can, very limited. You just do a walk through the factory, identify, look at the nameplates of some of the machines, look at the ACs, look at the hot plates, and then you go back to your office, you do some desktop analysis, which we're going to teach you, and then you look at the areas to focus on. Then you do recommendation to say, these are the minimum thing you can do to save energy, or these are the behavioral pattern you can change to save energy. So the only 2 recommendations you are expected to make. Okay, something that is very low cost, energy saving measures. Maybe change 1 or 2 ACs, change some lighting fittings to energy savers, change your TV to LEDs, change your hot plate to modern ones, change your refrigerator to maybe a higher star rating refrigerator, and that's all. Or you could do a no cost. Not every energy recommendation is cost, it has a cost component. You can also say, okay, from now henceforth, by 7 o'clock, all the security lights, external lights should be off. From now henceforth, during night hours, we should only do some of our major work during the day. During the night, when the solar is not on, we should do some kind of load shedding. Like a personal person, like in my house, I advise them not to do ironing, use the washing machine during the night. They have to use it during the day when I know that solar is on and the sun is up in the air. So I tell them, okay, and I pump water, of course. That one is a must. I must pump water between the hours of 10 o'clock and 3 o'clock. Okay. So we don't pump water at night because it means you're taking light from the battery, and that is not too good. So you can see I'm not buying any new thing, but rather I am recommending no cost energy saving measures. So do this, don't do this, change this, don't do that, and then your energy will come down. I mean, some people will leave their security light on. You think it doesn't matter, it does. Once it's 7 o'clock in the morning, of course, it should be off, right? And once it's 7 o'clock in the night, it should come on, whatever. Then, of course, some of us know these days, especially for the newest hotels, they're beginning to put light sensors. In fact, I was in my friend's house last week. I was surprised that he put sensors in his light fittings, and I was impressed. So if nobody's in the room, the light will go off. And once you enter the room and they hear the sound of your leg, the light comes on automatically. I mean, that was very cool. In the walkway too, if nobody's in there, the light will dim. Maybe move to 20% energy consumption from peak of 100. Okay, but once you step, you make a noise, then it comes up. So those are another area. Sorry, we're in the class. You can only chat me. Chat me. I'm in the class. The same link, please. Go to your email. The same link, the same everything, sir. We've not changed it. Okay, so number 2. Gentlemen, let me say this. The links we have shared with you is for the 8 weeks. You don't need to change anything. So, okay. So all I could do, maybe once in a while, I go back to Zoom and then remind people of the link. And the link is on the platform. Okay, so now.
Question for me on the link, please.
Somebody is in the group. Are you not in the group?
I'm in the group. I have a question.
Oh, you have a question. Go ahead.
Must it be on the phone? Can't it be on email? I find it because using my phone to attend this lecture.
Oh,
I need it on my email.
Okay.
So I use my laptop or my iPad.
Okay. I know how to do that. I think I will go back. I will tell Zoom to resend the email login. Yeah, I can see the problem people are having. Yes, but you can right click on the WhatsApp and send it to your email too, just like the way we send things from our WhatsApp to our email. But
No, it's not allowing to share. You just say copy or pin or you're not allowing to share. If I've tried to click to share through my email, but it's not allowing to share.
I will solve that problem by before every training. I will go back to Zoom and say resend invitation, or maybe I should do it now. So let me give an indulgence. Give me 2 minutes. Let me pause. So now moving to the second level 2 audit. The level 2 audit is quite different from level 1 audit, because from level 2 audit, you continue from where you stop from level 1. But this time around, you're going to do some data logging. You're going to do some metering. Remember, in level 1, there's nothing like metering. There's no metering whatsoever, no use of equipment whatsoever. Okay, it's just a walkthrough. Then you have to start reviewing the design, the installation. Then you have to start detailing. So a lot of detail work in level 2. But the 2 things that really stands out from level 1 to level 2 is that your recommendation will be broader. So in level 2 audit, you have to recommend a no cost, you have to recommend medium cost, and you have to recommend high cost. Why is it important? Why am I particular about this recommendation? Is because selling the output of your audit can be difficult sometimes. A case study of Nigeria. A lot of us are still coming into this space. A lot of managers and company owners are still trying to come up to speed with auditing. And that is why we have thought it wise to conduct this training. The more auditors we have, the more we stand a chance of making it a kind of a formidable profession, so that people will see the need for auditing. Because most of what people are doing these days, especially in terms of deploying renewable energy, they are not doing auditing. And that's why most of them are failing, especially in the ministries, in the agencies, where there is no control, where there are no standards. Okay, for the private sectors, a lot of people will first do audit before they deploy. At least let them know their maximum power consumption, know their off-peak and on-peak power consumption, so that they will know how to meet up with those off-peak and on-peak peak. So you have to give a broader recommendation, and you're not just going to write a report, but you're going to do a presentation. So that is another difference between level 1 and level 2. Then the other one is that you must conduct a cost. You must do costing. There must be costing on it. You must do some level of more extended work. So that is for level 2 auditing. I will still give you details about each and one of them. Then you now move to the level 3 audits, also known as investment grade audits. Now, you also do everything you have done in level 2, in level 3. But the difference now is that you now have to do some EIA and some kind of social impact analysis too. So all of us, we know that in our world of today, especially when you're looking for funds from some of these big organizations, they are more interested in your environmental impact analysis, okay? They're trying to look at how does your audit invest on the environment. Very, very key, okay? Not to talk of these days, we're talking about carbon taxing, we're talking about green economy, we're talking about greenhouse gas emission, we're talking about climate change, we're talking about net zero economy. So grade 3 audit must capture those third-party kind of audits. Okay, you need to look at how does this audit affect the environment. I mean, it's not just about recommending some measures that will adversely affect the environment. So you must look at also not just the environment now, the world has moved into social impact. Okay, you need to look at how does it apply, how many people are going to lose their jobs. Yes, it's important to talk about it, because you're not going to bring us a technology, you're not going to deploy a system that will suddenly make everybody to lose their job. How are they going to sustain themselves within the social means? So this is where the key things. Now, why is it called investment grade audit? It's obvious why it is called investment grade audit, because it is a bankable audit. It's a bankable audit. It's an audit that can sell to the banks. For instance, you might have to do air quality in your report. You might have to do investment plan using net present value. Okay, you might have to do a life cycle costing, because at that level of investment, they are looking at the figures, at the numbers. They're interested in how the numbers will fall out and how they can make big money. If you're going to the World Bank to ask for loan, you are talking about burning coal. You know they will not listen to you, which is bad anyway. Is it bad for us? In fact, that is one of the downside of climate change. That idea that developing countries are going to carry the blunt, are going to carry the whole blame. Yes, we know the climate is changing, but who caused it? Who caused it? So how do you ensure justice? That you have used coal to fire your gas plants to provide energy sufficiency for yourself. Then you're now compelling us to start to use renewable energy sources, for which we don't even have the technology. But let's not even go there. Okay, so these are the difference between level 1, level 2, and level 3 energy audits. Any question, any perspective, any idea? Do you have somebody who's an auditor here? Somebody have done auditing before? I can give you 1 minute and you critique this. Is this what you've been doing? Is it in line with what it should be? Or is there something we are missing? Please, you are free. Anyone? Does it mean we are all new? Nobody has done an energy auditing before? Okay. All right. Then we'll continue. So let us quickly look at the walkthrough energy auditing. So it is an exercise to establish energy consumption. So your goal in walkthrough audit is to say, what is the peak energy consumption? Okay. Then you look at what is the scope of saving? How far can we save energy? And then you identify the most likely areas that this energy can be saved. Then you look at what can they do. Okay, let me take, for instance, a residential house. I walk into your house. So I will check your meter, the consumption. I'll check your energy bills. And I found out that your energy consumption is 3 kilowatts. You get me? Remember, this is power. Then if 3 kilowatts, if you are getting energy 16 hours a day, I multiply it by that to get your energy consumption in a day. So let's say your peak power is 3 kilowatts. So I will now start to look at the scope of savings. So I discovered that you're using an old refrigerator. Some of these old refrigerators can consume as high as 600 watts. The new ones are consuming 200, 250. I'm very sure. This diffuser, yes. Then after that, I look at your ACs and I found out that you're still using wall units, probably, or you're still using old outdated ACs. Okay. Then I look at your energy bulbs and I found out that you are using these filament bulbs or incandescent bulbs as against the LEDs that are running now, that are modern now. So of course, I have identified them. So quantification might not be much for me because I'm just doing any of this. So all I'll just tell you is, okay, change this, replace this, stop using this time, stop using, or maybe I also discovered that you prefer, I just look at everything generally, right? If you have solar, for instance, I'll look at it whether the solar is connected to your inverter, or whether I can recommend you having a solar submersible pump that will stand alone for itself. Or I'll look at other areas you can, well, maybe while pumping, you should off the refrigerator, for instance, assuming you're having problem. So these are what we do in walkthrough audit. So how do you conduct a walkthrough audit? You conduct a site visit. You understand the energy consumption. You identify and evaluate no cost or low cost measure. So you can agree with me that some of the measures I'm recommending now might not be, if your windows, you are not using good windows, or if your windows have openings, I can recommend you to make sure your windows are airtight. Okay, those are low cost. I can slightly recommend that you change some of your bulbs. They might not really cost you much. I might leave your AC because AC is expensive, right? Or at least I can ask you to change one. Okay, I can even ask you to change from the standing unit to wall-mounted unit. Okay, so there are some low measure. I can ask you to stop using hot plates, old outdated hot plates. I'll ask you to start using gas, even though unfortunately in Nigeria now gas is even more expensive. We shouldn't be anyway. So those are what so it's more of identification, identify, then recommend low cost, low cost, low cost, low cost, low cost. That is walkthrough audit for you. So in the activities, I'll establish the energy balance. I'll do some minimal baseline analysis, review and get my baseline, benchmark 1 or 2 places, and then I'll compare my energy performance indicators, okay, which I've just mentioned to you, the refrigerating unit, the heating units. I think that's all. And then I'll make recommendation. So what will be my output? I'll give you a list of energy saving opportunities. I'll do a rough assessment of your payback period just to further convince you. Then I can maximally do a summary table, okay, showing you the energy savings, showing you the cost benefit analysis, and then showing you the payback period. Then I will do a small walkthrough audit report, very small report, which will have a 1-page executive summary so that if you feel lazy reading them, you can just read the executive summary. So that's all about it. However, the detailed energy audit is a little bit different. In detailed energy audit, we have to conduct the site visit just like we did in walkthrough. But this time, we'll do a comprehensive energy audit at site level with input from the organization. So we'll do a comprehensive energy auditing by doing load analysis, calculating the load, going through all the equipment, taking readings, taking note of their nameplates, checking what they are consuming. Then, with the whole idea that we have to start applying some energy management system. So the detail audit, level 2 audit or detail audit, talks about energy management system. We need to put in an energy management system in place after the auditing. Then, what activity am I going to do? I'm going to do what we call load assessments and submetterings. Do a load assessment. We'll do measurements. We'll do detail monitoring. Okay. We'll do mass balance. Okay. We'll now establish our baseline. Baselines are very important. Baselines are like when, let's say in the case of a hotel, what is our average occupancy rates? When we're 50% occupants, what do we consume? So I know that when we are 70% room occupancy, achieve 70% room occupancy, of course, expectedly, the energy will go down, will go up. But not when I've established my baseline at 50% occupancy, and then suddenly we're having 30% occupancy, and the energy is still going up. Doesn't make sense. So that's why baselines are very important. So in detailed energy audit, there's emphasis on establishing baselines. You establish baselines. Then you establish energy performance indicators. You must establish what constitutes this thing is consuming too much power. Like I just mentioned now, new deep freezers, the normal deep freezers, I can't quote the volume, but deep freezer, normal family size deep freezer, the latest ones now that are modern are consuming 50% of what the ones they produced 5 years ago are consuming. I've seen it, I've experienced it. In fact, some of these standing refrigeration that you see in shops consume more energy than the deep freezers. Yes.
Only just 100 watts.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Yeah, I think mine is 150, sir. Mine is 150. Yes, I've measured it. And that's cool. That means yours is more energy efficient than mine. But then I didn't ask you the volume, sir.
Yeah, this one is 200 liters.
Okay, same with mine. Oh, what's the product, sir? You can't remember.
The product. Yes, let me check. Okay,
Product name.
Ayatamoku.
No, it must be very expensive then. Mine is not Tamago, sir. You see where the difference is.
Ayatamoku.
So you see, this is a typical example I would like us to share at the end of this training.
The description on it is Nigeria's first inverter chest freezer with turbo fan. That's the description.
You went for the big one. Now you see that I'm using something very close to yours, but let's assume I'm using an old one. Now you can audit me, and you convince me that in a day, let's say in a year, we are consuming I don't know how to put it. Okay, let's just put it in a layman's term. The difference between yours and mine is about 50 kilowatts. Okay, or let's say 100 kilowatts. 100 watts, sorry, 100 watts, which is 0.1. So let's say in a day, 10 hours. 10 hours, right? So 10 hours mean 1 kilowatt. So you are saving 1 kilowatt in a day. Did you get me, sir?
Yes, sir.
And 1 kilowatt for band B, 1 kilowatt for band B is 16 naira, right? Or let's use band A. Let's use band A so that the money will be big. So band A is 200 naira per kilowatt. So it means you are saving 200 naira every day. 200 times 30 is what? Somebody give it to me. Let's just do something very in a layman's language for you to really further appreciate what we're doing here. So 200 times 30. Sir, you are saving 6,000 per month. Good morning.
Okay.
Good morning. I greet you. Okay. Yeah. So you're saving, sir, you're saving 6,000 per month, which translates to, in a year, you are saving 72,000. Let's say the lifespan of that refrigerator is 5 years. So 72 times 5, 360,000.
Okay.
Now I can bet you that the difference between what I bought mine and what you bought yours might just be 100,000. So you're at advantage. So, but at the point of me purchasing it, probably tell me mine is 500,000 and yours is 700,000. I say, oh, it's too expensive. But when I do the auditing and look at the energy to be saved, I find out in the next 5 years, I'm going to be saving 360,000 naira. Whereas I was supposed to just increase the purchasing price by 200,000. Okay, we'll still come to that, but that's what auditing is all about. We'll still come to that. All right, thank you very much. Okay. Now, when we come to bulbs and LED, you see it's huge. Now, you also, under the detailed energy audit, you recommend improvement to the organizational management practice. So as an auditor conducting a detailed energy audit, you're not just going to give report and then run away. You're going to also recommend some areas of improvement. You're going to, in most cases, you're most likely going to take them through developing an energy policy. Okay, and then how to continually improve on their practices. So that is detailed audit for you. Then what are the outputs? You have to detail all the energy saving opportunities. You must quantify them and write them out. You must do a detailed economic analysis. You must measure just what I just did now. You must measure, this is saving coming from refrigerator, this is savings coming from LEDs, these are the savings coming from the bulbs, these are the savings coming from this, from that, and from that. You must detail it. Okay, every single one of them, you must detail it and then come up with a kind of a table showing the energy savings, showing the payback period, using net present value computations. Then the next one is you also do a detailed energy audit report, a more expansive, a more comprehensive energy audit report as your output. Now, so now one will expect me to go into the number 3. So the difference between level 2 and level 3 is that for the level 2 audit, you now have to include your environmental and social impact assessments. You now have to include your environmental and social impact assessments by including how does your audit impact positively on the environment? How is not going to cost people their jobs, and how it will be in tune or in line with Nigeria's net zero target, or how it is justified within the context of climate change, or within the context of saving money, or in terms of carbon crediting or carbon taxation. That's just the difference. Just have to include 3 or 4 more items in your detailed energy audit to make it an investment grade audit. It's the highest level of audit. It should have everything that should everything that should be questioned, or anything that should be an encumbrance to its successful adoption by your client or by the funding agency. That's just it. Okay, let us look at some energy audit principle. So, an energy auditor, as an auditor, you must be competent. Then you must learn to be confidential. Okay, and you must learn to be objective. You are an auditor. In terms of being objective, you're not part of the system. You don't have to be kind of biased. You have to be objective. In being objective, you must not have any third-party interest. You must not have any. You must avoid conflict of interest. Very, very important. Very, very. We usually tell auditors what your client should buy after your auditing. It's not your place. It's not your place to tell a client after auditing, you recommend a product name as an auditor. So that is where objectivity comes in. Okay. So you must be consistent with the agreed scope, boundary, and audit objective. So that's why in your startup meetings, all of you will sit down and discuss what and what to audit and what not to audit. How far you can go, who to audit and who not to audit. All this is must be put in. If we're auditing our generating line, then we should limit it to that. If we're auditing our production unit, then we should limit it to that. Then measurement and observation is appropriate. You must make sure that the measurement and appropriation to energy use and consumption. So you must make sure you just don't go and start measuring what is not needed or just doing things anyhow. It must follow approved guidelines and standards. Okay. Then collected energy performance data is representative. You must not conclude that this is all, but you can use as a representative. So these are some of the things we can read in our free time, and we'll all get it done. Okay. So more details about the different energy guidelines. Okay. In the scope, the EN standard allows the auditors and the client to define the scope and intensity of the work. So both of you must agree. This is how far we're going to do. Then the standard does not the EN standard does not specify types and point of measurement. Now it is up to you, the auditor, to determine where to measure. But in an auditing, measurements are important. You don't just assume what is written on the nameplate. You don't just assume what you are told. You must do some level of measurements. And as we said, that measurement should be representative. You mustn't go and start measuring every day, every minute, every second. Just do representative measurements and use that to work. Like I always tell people, engineering is a science of approximation. You cannot be exact. Then field work. The standard does not also specify the walkthrough principle. However, all equipment should be visited. Even for the purpose of you showing credibility, showing competence, it is good that you conduct physical field work and take measurements. The next one is after field work, you move to analysis. So in analysis, you should follow standard. You should follow international best practices in your analysis. Then in your reporting, there are many reporting standards. Even if you go online, you see some reporting standard, but your reporting should be concise, should be brief. It must not be too wordy. It must be something a layman will read and understand. Your audit report is not an opportunity for you to show how good you are in writing grammar and speaking English. Keep it simple and stupid. KISS, K-I-S-S. Keep it simple and stupid. So just make it very simple. Now, we talked about the energy auditing steps. So as a recap, once again, the first thing is to plan. Planning, you set up the boundaries, you specify the source of information during your planning. That planning is the first. Remember, this is ISO planning. That's the first step in the energy auditing process. You might have to sign some level of confidential agreements. Let me tell you why this is important. In the open markets, many organizations, one of the major performance indicators is your energy consumption. You know, that's why we're having a problem in Nigeria. That is why some of our products are cannot competitive in the international markets. somebody who produces 1 unit of goods in China might require 10% of the cost of the product to produce. In Nigeria, you need not less than 40%. In other words, for your product to come to the market, the total cost of that product, 40% of it is used as energy production cost. So if your rival is producing a unit at 10% cost and you're producing at 40% cost, definitely your cost in the market will not be the same. Yours will be more expensive. And I think that is where the Chinese are getting the world now. This morning I was reading about some German companies trying to shut down their production plants. And I was alarmed. I knew that this thing happened some years ago, but they're able to rescue themselves. And guess who they are blaming? China. They are blaming China. And all of us know the reasons. And one of the reasons why China is beating everybody now is in terms of energy, both human resource and capital resource. The number of solar panels and solar lights that are coming up in China is alarming. Very soon, what we will produce with 20 naira in Nigeria, I'm telling you, China will produce with 5 naira. It used to be 10 naira in China, 20 naira in Nigeria. But now I'm telling you, the way they are investing in energy resource, it will soon be 5 naira in China. And then I don't see any other person producing at 20 naira. That's what is happening in Germany. Despite being a strong force in manufacturing, the Chinese are using energy to kill them off. America is already gone. America is just printing dollar. Okay? They're just printing dollar and buying things. Yes. But for the Chinese, they're investing in power infrastructure massively with the end goal of influencing their exports by reducing the cost of production, by making it cheaper and cheaper and getting even cheaper every day to produce in China. So there should be some level of confidentiality. You don't need to expose somebody's trade secrets like I'm doing now. Of course, Germans, they already know their problem. Okay, the involvement in the war have limited them taking energy from gas resource from Russia. I mean, a whole lot of things are happening within that ecosystem. Okay, so the planning, you have to set up the boundaries. You have to agree. You have to build trust. You have to know your priority areas. You need to establish how information will be gotten and what have you. Okay. So the next thing is data collection. After planning, you've signed agreements, they've given you the go-ahead, then you move to data collection. In data collection, there are different areas you collect data. The first area is your material. You collect data from the beginning to the end. So from raw material, you started collecting data. Such data as production statistics, including both finished product and even intermediates. What are the material purchased? Why do you need some of this data collection? Because in production, based on what we call the law of continuity, what you put in is what you get out. So if I receive 100 tons of materials and I deliver 80 tons, and my energy consumption is X, the day I deliver 200 tons of material, I will expect my energy consumption to be 2X, and so on and so forth. So you need to collect data from the material section. Then after the material section, you collect data from the energy section. The data from the energy section will include utility bills, consumption reports, data from your submitters, suppliers, and then all forms of energy. Then you move to the processes. You need to collect data from the processes, like flow rates for industrial application, electricity supply, flow diagrams, and operational costs. You know, a lot of things. You have to start collecting things. Then the next thing, you move to the equipment. You collect data from the equipment. You specify the equipment and what they are consuming, and so on and so forth. So you can see that we're collecting data from 4 sources: the raw materials, the energy consumption, the production process, and then the equipment. So it's still on irregular, it's still on data collection. You say important actions. You say verify source of data. So confirm if energy breakdown are from metering or calculated. It is good if you use the wrong data, you made a mistake. You make a mistake. That's why we talk about measurement is sine qua non. You must measure. You must measure, and you must validate your data. You must authenticate them. Very, very important. If you use the wrong parameters, then your output will be wrong. There's no two way. Garbage is garbage out. What you see is what you get. Then check the time covered. And in some countries, winter consumption is different from summer consumption. You must know. If you use data for summer and apply it to winter, you make a mistake. Even in Nigeria, during Harmattan, some of us agree with me. As of 2 weeks ago, we have no need to on our AC at night, if you agree with me. But since last week, it has started being, since this week, sorry, the weather is becoming hotter. Yes, the weather is becoming hotter, but throughout for a couple of weeks, it was just pretty low, very cold. So what we're saying here in essence is that you should know the period you are covering time. Like for the hotels, weekends, or funny enough, weekends can be a very low consumption time for most hotels. Weekdays can be more challenging for them. Yes, and so on and so forth. So you say check irregular consumption during your data collection. Check the pattern. Sometimes patterns are very important. Then check the variation raw materials and fuel quality. Thank God that our fuel quality in Nigeria is going to improve. Believe me, our cars will stop having soot and other problems because we believe that Dangote will give us what we deserve in terms of quality. This is my postulation. Maybe I might be wrong, but I'm just being positive, right? Okay, so if you are buying 1 liter of diesel based on what the manufacturer have said about the generator, you get so units of electricity. Let it be. Not when you are buying 1 unit, you are getting almost half. Okay, so the next is the startup meeting. Okay, so the startup meeting should have come first, but it's just trying to analyze again. Now, he said the purpose of the startup meeting is to brief all involved representatives of the company on the audit objective, boundary, level, details, and so on and so forth. He said the auditor shall request the organization to identify a person to liaise with the lead auditor. It's very, very key. You must have a point person. You must have a point man. That point man is arguably going to be the facility manager, but some organizations don't have that kind of structure. Some don't have a facility manager. So a facility manager should be the one who will take you through, explain things to you as the auditor. An auditor should know that he doesn't know it all. You're in a new terrain, you need to familiarize yourself. You need to understand how things work. And then you take it off from there. You need to inform the personnel and all interested parties about the auditor. Very, very important. And furthermore, you must ensure their cooperation. Then you also have to disclose any unusual condition. Okay? Or they have to disclose to you. As an auditor, they should tell you where to go. It is not good for you to go to where will hurt you. You know, some organization can be very careless. They should explain to you some basic no-go areas in terms of safety. So you don't go and get into trouble because you want to take some measurement or step on some toes, which might lead to the unexpected. For the field work, familiarize yourself with the site and procedure. Ask for charts. Ask for charts. Ask for logs. Study them. Obtain drawings. Obtain plans. Try to know the operational status of all the machines. Okay? Discuss, have time and discuss with the equipment operator. No knowledge is a waste. They will tell you how things are working and they will share their challenges with you. Then finally, don't forget to take pictures. Very important. Pictures speak 1,000 words. So during the field work too, you must make proper arrangements for your safety, You must understand the rules and the emergency rules. You must ask for access, full access to all the areas that you're going to carry out your audit. Very, very important. You have to tell them the resources you need and how to get them. Then you have to sign non-disclosure agreement because they're going to take you into where they have their secrets, and you need to observe those confidential structure. So you need to write all the days you want to visit, your proposed visit, and everything. And if you need any special thing, you should be known. You should tell them. And if there's equipment to be installed, it should be also be captured. Seal on field work. You should be able to audit, inspect. You need to know the boundary of your work. You need to do a lot of stuff. I mean, you can all read this and grasp it. So, like we said before, as an auditor, you must identify people you need to work with. People that will give you all the data, because you're not going to spend all your days in the factory or in the home. So you must have a liaison person, someone who will give you access to all the documents you need, who will even help you identify more individuals who have, because what you need as an auditor is information. You need as much information as possible. So you need humans to succeed. You need friends. You need collaborators. You need people to support you in all the way, from the beginning to the end. Then finally, you now go to analysis. You must use transparent and technically appropriate calculation method. Your analysis must be something that anybody can read and understand. Okay, you must, evaluate the reliability of your data, because now you're going to make mistakes if you're not careful. Okay, and then you must document all the methods you use. And if there are problems that you might face or the organization might face in improving the energy, you should let them know. I remember when we audited one hotel, they don't have an overhead tank. There's no overhead tank in that hotel. So what they do is that they have what we call line pumps. As soon as you open the tap, the pump will trigger off. So part of the recommendation we gave them was that they need to install an overhead tank, which is going to be very difficult for them. But then you have to do it because as an auditor, you must be objective. So in the analysis, you must identify. You say the energy auditor shall identify energy performance improvement opportunity based on data analysis, and also based on their own expertise, and based on their design they have evaluated, based on the advanced solution they are providing, and then based on best practices. So you must identify where improvements need to be done. You must identify where the money is. That's the word. So I think we can all read this and understand. I don't need to read them. I don't need to read all this. Reporting is very important. So at the end of this class, I think we'll share 1 or 2 templates of reports with us. But then I can advise you, if you need to do any of the audits, go to Google and type in energy audit report templates. You're going to see hundreds and tens of them. Take up one, audit it, and then based on the steps written out by ISO, you can start making sense out of it. The purpose of the report is to present the findings and recommendation of the energy audit report, as well as to pose a tool for decision makers regarding the implementation of the energy efficiency investment. Your report is to you to show your findings and make recommendations. Don't forget that. So it must contain all the necessary information. You must present your results and information on a simple way, very simple way, keeping in mind that non-engineers might read your reports. So another thing is that the report must not contain extensive set of calculations and analysis. You don't need them. You don't need to speak too much grammar. You don't need to put in complicated charts and many things. You don't need them. Okay, Any question? We are gradually coming to an end. Any question? Do we have any question? I pause the recording.